We are live. Great. Welcome everybody to Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs. It is Vermont Housing and Conservation Day at the State House, which is always an exciting day. And so we are kicking off by, we're kicking off our Housing Day with appropriately talking to our housing and conservation partners. And to kick that off, we're going to pass it to Molly to introduce yourself and to introduce what we're going to hear about.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Molly Dugan. I work at Cathedral Square, a nonprofit housing and services organization that serves statewide. I'm also one of the co-chairs of the Vermont Housing and Conservation Coalition. And as the chair just mentioned, this is our annual legislative day, and we are filling the State House with staff and residents and farmers and all kinds of folks that have seen the impact of Vermont Housing and Conservation Board funding. For next year is the 40th anniversary of the Vermont Housing and Conservation Coalition.
That's pretty exciting.
40 years that housing and conservation interests have come together to support these community-driven projects that you're going to hear about from our three witnesses. And I think our kind of key point today is that these community-driven projects have been going on for 40 years, where we're coupling housing and conservation. And as you can see here, housing loves conservation and vice versa. We've got the Valentine's Day. What you're going to hear is this common thread around connections, because that is what, at its base, the funding through VHCB does. It brings people connecting at the very local level through housing, historic preservation efforts, conservation efforts, farm legacy efforts. So we are going to be around the State House all day. We're going to be testifying in 10 different committees. Thank you very much for having us. And we want to underscore that our main ask, if you will, is that we support the governor's recommend for Vermont Housing Conservation Board of the $37.6 million, which is the full base of the property transfer tax. So we ask that you support what the governor has put in the budget. So with that, I'm
Big surprise.
I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful witnesses that are going to talk about the incredible community impact that's happening. Thanks to you guys.
All right. Well, and it's a mutual admiration.
It's exciting.
So I think we're going to start with Ben.
No,
And,
no, it's
we're going to start with David. David on the screen.
Yes, hi folks. I had a brief internet blip, but I'm back. And
great. And if we could go full screen with David, great. David, I'm not sure. Do you know all of us here in the room? Do you know?
I probably don't. I looked at the roster and we're
going to introduce ourselves. David,
that's fine. Yep.
We're going to start with another David.
Good morning, Dave Weeks, representing Rutland County.
Great.
And Franklin County and Northern Grand Isle.
And Allison Clarkson, Windsor District.
So I'm Tom Chittenden. I represent Chittenden Southeast, and Senator Hinsdale is also on the committee. She should be joining on Zoom shortly, and she's from the same district as well.
Great. And David, we welcome you via Zoom. And you look like you're outdoors at a tour, a trailhead of some sort.
That's to some extent that's true. Yes, it's a lovely morning down here. It was about 0 when we started, but the sun's out and there's no wind. Everybody's all pumped up to the Williams College Carnival, which is going on right now.
Great. So, David, introduce yourself and fill us in on your and testify away.
Thanks for the invitation to testify this morning. My name is David Newell. I'm president of the Prospect Mountain Association Board. We're a 501c3, and we own and operate the Prospect Mountain Nordic Trail Center. It's in Woodford, Vermont, which is 7 miles east of Bennington on Route 9. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I've done that before on behalf of the VHCB, but we do have a big event going on right now, the Williams College Winter Carnival, the Nordic portion of it, which is about a dozen Division I teams competing here today. And unfortunately, I can't stay on to hear the other testimony from the other folks. I do have some things to attend to here. But This event and many others would not have been possible for us without the outstanding support that we got from the VHCB. Going back to 2018, when they generously gave us a grant for $265,000, which enabled us to purchase Prospect Mountain from the private owners at that time. I consider the grant from the VHCB an investment in the community, and it certainly has been that for us now that we're embarking on our 9th year of operation here. Today's a good example. We have 200 folks here at Prospect, athletes and spectators. They stayed overnight last night. They stay overnight tonight. They patronize our shops and other hostleries. And this is a great economic boost for Southern Vermont in the wintertime, which is a traditionally fairly slow time. And that would not have been possible without the great initial grant we got from the VHCB. When we received the grant in 2018, it gave us a legitimacy where folks said, gee, these folks are the real thing. The VHCB believes in their mission and what they're doing. And I think we'll donate also. And it enabled us to complete our capital campaign. And we did raise the $900,000 in a matter of a few months to purchase Prospect. But again, the starter on that was the VHCB grant. We were assisted by the Vermont Land Trust, and they did an excellent job in helping us get organized and also assisted us in the grant application to the VHCB. And we found that the staff of the VHCB were tremendously helpful to us and very professional, starting with Gus Seelig and his excellent crew that worked for them. And I'm sure other organizations, and you'll hear from 2 others today, have the same story with how easy it is to work with them and what a bonus it is to have them support your organization. Now Prospect is used by a wide range of folks, not just competition like we have today, but we have youth program, the Bill Koth Youth Ski League. We have an elementary school program where we donate ski rentals and instruction for them. High school racing goes on down here in Southern Vermont. And of course, we have the college competition today. But maybe what's even more important is we offer a recreational outlet for many folks in Southern Vermont to come up here and ski. We have 380 season pass holders from 6 different states here. So it brings people up to the Southwestern Vermont area to ski here and also stay overnight. And we last year had 27,000 skier days up here. So we're used quite a bit by recreational skiers primarily in that number. We are, I think, a pretty important recruiting tool for the hospital when they're trying to attract doctors to come here and other industries and businesses here when they're attracting executive talent, because we do offer a very well-appointed Nordic Trail Center with groomed trails and a lodge for folks to enjoy. Events are important to us. We have this one today. We had the New England U16 Championships last year, a 5-state competition that involved about 300 kids. And we are we're going to host the Bill Koch Youth Ski Festival next year. Wish us luck on this, because with 600 kids coming here.
It's a great event.
Right. Great event. And we're delighted to be part of that. And it'll be a massive effort, but we think we can pull it off. So I would certainly encourage the legislature to support the VHCB budget request of the $37 million. And our story is, I think, a very good one, and you'll hear many others for the importance of the grant support they received from the organization. So I'm glad to accept questions, and for many of you, I know you have a limited time slot this morning, so feel free to ask some.
Committee, any questions? Dave?
So, thank you for the testimony. I see behind you snowshoes, cross country, some alpine gear. What sports are you in addition to those possibly are you supporting at the center?
Well, in addition to Nordic skiing, we do have snowshoe trails here available. We have a lively group of folks who do snowshoeing up here. And we also have, since Prospect back in the day was a downhill ski area, it actually was founded in 1938. went all the way to 1992 with a T-bar lift and a rope tow up here. So the Alpine trails are still here, and we have a growing number of folks who skin up and ski down.
Ah, yes, those Skinners.
Yeah, and the Skinners, and these folks are great. And we're a little bit of an epicenter on that because we have the unusual resource of having downhill trails in a Nordic area.
Right.
So we're happy to encourage that. So
And
that's
you-
what we offer. Yeah.
Do you do mountain biking?
We don't do mountain biking here. One reason is that 40% of our trails we lease from the National Forest, U.S. Forest Service. And they're really nice folks and they work well with us, but we would need a different permit than we have now to mountain bike on the trails.
Got it.
And we are moderately concerned about damage to our Nordic trails and repairing that for the upcoming season. And there are many other opportunities for mountain biking down here, so we leave that to other folks who are better equipped to offer that service.
So question for you, the next major investment I assume that you're considering is snowmaking.
That's true, and we actually have a small system now.
Oh,
I didn't mention that in my remarks to you, but after the initial purchase, we launched another capital campaign for that. And we were able to raise, believe it or not, about another 900,000 for the system, which cost us at least that plus a little bit. And we now have about 2K of snowmaking here,
oh, that's great.
which is on a loop and enables us to open earlier and to supplement the snow that we have.
Right.
We'd like to maybe eventually expand that. We're sort of learning by going on this. And we all learned that making snow is a somewhat complicated procedure. Very weather dependent and wind. And,
Right.
and having the right personnel, our staff, it works really hard as it is, but it's hard for us to keep them up all night doing that.
Right.
But we do have it and we have used it. Yes.
Right. David, thank you very much. That was terrific. And if you have written out your testimony, if you'd be kind enough to email it to our committee assistant, Kiara Me, that would be terrific.
Yes, I did write it out and I will.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I apologize. Oh,
Yeah, Molly helped me with that.
I
Right. Yeah.
will look before I speak. Thank you. Thank you. I see it right here. In fact, everybody.
That's great. And we appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Have a great event and have fun with all those Williams College people.
That's right. We're rooting for Williams today. Yes, we are.
Yes. You're here.
They're almost in Vermont. They're almost
Yeah.
in Vermont. They should be.
Almost, not quite.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I think we're next going to welcome Ben. Unless Andrew wants to, I mean,
Ben,
Ben.
ready.
Nice to see you all again.
Ben, it's good to see you.
Let's share my screen.
Oh, I thought I saw you earlier. Up there.
It just takes a second.
Oh, God, it's been incredible. I think sadly, the thing that happened 10 years ago, it's come through nice little spine again, which is what they say happens. Sorry if I, oh,
Thank you.
check with.
Well, I mean, really, I feel, I might have used this joke before, but I used to be a high school English teacher and I still have PowerPoint anxiety of ninth graders. You folks are far more generous.
And full screen is.
Oh, there you go. You got it. You got it.
Okay. Great. It's wonderful to see you all again. My name's Ben Doyle. I'm president of the Preservation Trust of Vermont. I've been here already this year, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the Preservation Trust, other than to say our mission is to build community through the preservation of historic buildings, villages, and downtowns. Last year, we worked on 355 projects in 152 communities. That's what this map represents. And I want to say that so much of this work is made possible because of our partnership with VHCB. We have a long-standing relationship with VHCB, and probably most significantly, when VHCB donates or makes a grant for a historic preservation project, that is accompanied by a preservation easement. meaning that the grant recipient agrees to maintain the historic character of that building. And that easement is monitored by the Preservation Trust. We receive a small portion of funding that goes into a special fund that allows us to every year visit those projects and those investments to ensure that they're being maintained correctly. What I really want to speak about today, though, is the dual goal of VHCB.
Before you leave that
Please.
slide,
Sure.
Ben, this is such a great map for those of us who want to ensure that projects happen all over Vermont. But all your important data is in this tiny unreadable box. And I'm just gonna say, for those of us who are sight challenged, that I would love that information in an independent email or something, because I can't read it.
Okay. I thank you for that feedback. I will absolutely,
If
Yeah.
you're online, that's true, you can zoom in. So Thomas, of course, has figured out how to zoom in. I, with my pathetic eyesight, like, oh.
no
can't do
problem.
that.
I'd be happy to send that information.
Thank you,
Okay.
or Thomas will figure out how to get it to me.
Okay.
But because
Great.
that's all the great data that, I mean, that's.
You know,
great.
I have to say, we
That's great.
struggle every year on how are we gonna put this map together and what, but,
It's great, the map is great,
yeah,
but just the info is even more important.
great. Okay.
You can send us a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
I actually have one here, I have one here.
I'm gonna move on to the dual
Yeah.
goals of VHCB,
Yeah, sorry.
and this is really what I want to tell us a little bit of a story about. And I think I've told you about the East Calais General Store
Yes.
before, but this is, and I'm going to go very briefly on it, but this is the East Calais General Store, which was built in 1850. One of the challenges of my jobs when we talk about general stores, everybody in Vermont thinks they have the oldest general store, including these folks. But anyway, 1850, and it was really, if you know East Calais, the heart of that community, right in the village, anchored the village in the community. After 150 years of use, finally the store was in a pretty challenged and dilapidated state by 2018, had closed, and a group of people got together and said, we have to save this store if our village is going to remain viable. And that, of course, the East Calais Community Trust, Representative Mahaly was a huge part of this project and organizing this. But I think if you were to ask Representative Mahaly, he would tell you that this project would not have been possible without VHCB. VHCB was the largest funder of this project. The Preservation Trust, we provided a ton of technical assistance. We provided actually a lot of funding through a congressionally directed spending award, through the Paul Broom Historic Revitalization Grant Program. 27 different funding sources went into this project,
Whoa.
but it would not have happened without VHCB. And just to give you a sense of how they influenced this project, it's not only the general store that anchors the village and provides the center of commerce. There's 3 perpetually affordable housing units in this building, which, by the way, is carbon neutral. They did an amazing job. So it has 3 perpetual units, at least one of which is fully handicapped accessible. And this is what I wanted to talk about is VHCB's dual mission. And I think of it as the 3-legged stool of land conservation, historic preservation, and housing. It's not one of those 3. It's all of those 3 put together that makes Vermont what it is. And VHCB, I think, is a real leader nationally in bringing that approach. And here they leverage different resources. So, for example, they provided $370,000 in housing funding to make those 3 perpetual units. They had $210,000 in preservation funding. They had $60,000 in lead remediation funding, and then $2,000 in feasibility funding right at the beginning to see if this was in fact a viable project. And this is the store today. And I hope that you all get a chance to see it.
And may I just point out, because I represent one of exactly the same thing all over Vermont, we have, as all of the 4 of us know, we have these anchors to our communities that are generally often just one general store.
Yes.
And they often are the general store.
Absolutely.
Barnard is one of them. You did one up in Albany.
I have a whole, I'm gonna breeze
But
right through them.
What is astonishing is how many of our communities are held together by one
Yes.
thing.
And that I absolutely agree. And what I really want to leave you with is this idea that rural communities in Vermont are only truly viable for the future if they have a gathering place like this. If we want more people to come to Vermont to participate in our economy, I really believe we have to look at our strategy for rural communities and make them viable. And I think when someone's choosing whether or not they're going to live in Burlington or Belvedere, they're going to choose a place where they can find affordable housing, but also find a place of community, a place where they can gather with their neighbors and feel like they belong
And get their mail.
and get their mail.
And-
I mean, yes. So just real quickly, this is of course the ribbon cutting for that ceremony, which was a real team sport. But I just want to like breeze through really quickly to say the East Calais example is not unique at all. This is the Guilford Country Store that 10 years ago, VHCB, more than 10 years ago, excuse me, almost 20 years ago, VHCB put $70,000 into this project, and Wyndham and Windsor Housing across the street helped develop affordable units of housing. So you've got this combination of commerce, community support enterprise, and housing. Similarly, the Putney General Store, which burned in 2008, was renovated and then actually burned to the ground in 2009. Preservation Trust worked with a number of partners, but including VHCB, who made a significant investment for the Putney General Store to rebuild and is thriving today. The Albany General Store. This is a project that I really want to talk. We know a lot about the housing funding that VHCB does, the conservation funding. One of the most significant, I think, in under the radar rockstar programs at VHCB is the READY program, the Rural Economic Development Initiative program, which provides small grants to leverage federal funding. And so the Albany General Store is another example of a store that burned, sat vacant for 5 years. Preservation Trust, we helped them organize a community trust that raised money and purchased the building, renovated the building, and it's now owned by a nonprofit trust and operated by a private operator. But what I want you to think about is that because of the READY program, which provides grants of less than $5,000, they were able to hire a grant writer that allowed them to pull down a USDA rural business development grant of $90,000. Similarly, at the East Calais store, the READY program helped them secure a Northern Borders Regional Commission grant of $185,000.
So that is an amazing return on a very modest investment.
Honestly, it is one of the most successful economic development programs I know in the state of Vermont. They really help people on the beginning of that project, and they bring in the technical expertise. These small communities, to ask them to fill out a Northern Borders Regional Commission grant application, and I say this as someone who used to work at USDA and administer those programs, it's very challenging. And that's why you see larger communities often pull down that kind of federal funding. It's programs like the READY program that allows these small towns to really pull it down. The Rupert Cafe was able to pull down a USDA community facilities grant because of the READY program.
Where is this remind us?
This is the Sheldon Cafe in Rupert, Vermont.
This is
an old general store that's had vacant for a number of years, was actually turned into a housing unit, which often happens when general stores close. We need the housing, but we also need the stores. And so this is they now have coffee hour every weekend, and the community kind of gathers there. And again, that was also helped made possible by the READY program. The Stratford General Store that we just worked with for the past 2 years.
finished.
Yeah, it happened. They really pulled it off. They raised I think $1.6 million of philanthropic funds to make this project happen. And now READY was a big part of that, of helping them do feasibility studies. They're currently working with them on potential renovations that they need to do. And then Buxton's. This is I was actually there yesterday. And this was a real loss for the community of Orwell. And we're working with them through our Village Trust initiative, but READY and VHCB, we anticipate, are going to be a huge partner on this project. Elmore General Store, Barnard General Store.
The Buxton's is in Orwell, right?
That's right. Yep. And then this is Pierce's General Store in Shrewsbury. You know Pierce's?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well,
That's in his district.
we actually, Preservation Trust of Vermont, owns Pierce's and then leases it out to the co-op.
It's just up there last week.
They have great new operators there and excellent food, great
And
sandwiches.
do they have an apartment?
They actually do have an apartment. The store is attached to Marjorie Pierce. The Pierce family lived here for generations, and then when she passed away, she actually donated the store to the Preservation Trust of Vermont.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place, an institution. But what I mean to just end with, and I'm really cognizant of the time, is that I cannot tell you how important VHCB is in thinking holistically about what it means for rural communities to thrive. So we need access to land because this is Vermont. We need affordable places where people can live, and we need to preserve the important parts that make Vermont Vermont and allow communities to come together. And I think through general stores and through so much of what VHCB does, that made possible. Thank you for your partnership and your support of VHCB. That means a lot. I'm happy to take any questions.
Gentlemen,
Well done.
we're never done.
See you at
The
Pierce's.
nice thing with Ben is we're never done. And as you may or know, because I think you touched on it briefly when you were here before, you are engaged in Montpelier and trying to take all these empty, less than well-used spaces in downtown Montpelier.
Well, I mean,
Turning them into productive spaces, and you have 3 minutes to.
well, you know how much I loved it. Last time I was here, I went off a little bit on the federal building, but
Yeah.
that's actually a really good example that
Yeah.
HCB recently recapitalized their land bank fund in order to provide access to capital, not necessarily to that project, but to projects where there's a unique opportunity that's required to secure site control for potential affordable housing projects. And so that, you know, every town, or not every town, every downtown in Vermont has these kind of underutilized, you know, a lot of times we call them pits, but I think of them as development opportunities.
Yes.
Right? And it's
Well-
often so difficult to secure site control. And something like, you know, VHCD being flexible, being creative, having access to capital that can quickly be deployed to secure site control so something wonderful can happen is really important.
So, and what we're looking at, and all the designs I've seen, or at least all the maps on this possibility, on this opportunity, are the, as you gentlemen know, the 3 parking lots that are behind,
Yeah.
all owned by different people, I believe, or many of them.
The best
And
part,
then,
yeah.
and then the federal building.
Well, it's really great because you've got for years, people have talked about redevelopment along Court Street, and it's been very challenging because the federal government doesn't want to really talk about it. But the fact that they're now putting that property up for auction means that you would have access to those 3 lots owned by the federal government, Vermont Mutual, and BGS, all from that one property.
3 different owners,
Yeah, but all of whom are ready to work together to make something great happen.
which is great and not always the case. But that's terrific. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ben, thank you for being such a productive partner. I mean, we have great partners here today. And from my neck of the woods, we have Andrew Winters, and we welcome you, sir.
Great.
Introduce yourself
yeah,
and
Andrew Winter from Twin Pines House of Press, nice to see you, Senator. We had an occasion to visit together at Hartford Town Hall a couple of years ago. Nice to meet you, Senator. I'm the executive director at Twin Pines Housing Press. And Sarah, thank you so much for playing a videographer here as we kind of cycle through this. The first slide is a slide of a project that we developed a few years ago, 5 years ago, called Wentworth 2 in Hartford. A great example of the kind of housing that we're developing in conjunction with VHCB. So a little bit about Twin Pines. We are a nonprofit, like our other partners here today, and have been around for 35 years. We have today 665 rental units, 71 home ownership units, 9 mobile homes, and a single mobile home park in South Royalton. And we're doing a little bit of everything. Anything that involves housing is what we're doing, and that is true for our peers in the network of nonprofits that are developing across Vermont. So we're doing stuff for seniors. We're doing a lot of housing right now for veterans. And we also have done projects for the homeless. So the project that you see on the top of the screen, 747 Hartford Ave, is one that we did in conjunction with the Upper Valley Haven, which is our regional homeless shelter. And that is providing housing for 18 chronically homeless folks, similar to a project that we developed across the river in Lebanon, New Hampshire. We worked on both sides of the river. And then more recently, we undertook the Riverwalk project. And that's sort of an interesting project because we did it on a turnkey basis in an effort to try to keep costs down. We're always mindful of how expensive building anything is in Vermont these days. This is a project where we worked with a property owner that happened to be a general contractor, had developed several properties in Hartford, and we signed an agreement with them to buy a completed building. We worked with them to make sure that it was designed to meet our needs.
so that's what you mean by turnkey. You
And
bought it
that's
finished.
So we bought it finished when it was 99% finished. I'm happy to explain the whys as to why it was 99% complete and not 100% complete. But it had to do with our tax credit rules and making sure that the investor was admitted into the project before the project was placed in service.
And how much would you estimate that saved? Because we're all I mean, we
Yeah,
all have a pretty clear understanding of the cost challenge.
yeah.
And so I think we'd love to know, A, how much you saved by doing it that way, and B, how much did sort of on average these units cost?
Yeah, so this was a project that was 394,000 a unit, so less than four.
Yes, much less.
The 747.
747 was in the fours, and that was driven in part because we were working with St. Paul's Episcopal Church. We were rebuilding certain facilities that they share with us, as well as with the Upper Valley Haven, which is right next door. So it was one of the challenges that we deal with when developing housing is working with municipalities. The municipality here really wanted us to upgrade everything in that site. And so
As did the neighbors.
as did the
The
neighbors.
neighbors were very challenging.
The neighbors were very challenging. Yes.
I say that with affection, but
Yes.
they didn't delay it 10 years, but they did delay it.
Yes, this was, there are, I believe, 40 or 50 hours of my life that I will never get back in terms of public hearings.
Yeah.
And that was a lengthy process, but one that I think ended up with a better product, and one that, we're committed to working.
May I just ask you on that? That is designed to bring people from homelessness into housing.
Correct.
18 of those units are for that purpose.
Yes.
What's our success rate so far? And we've only been open a year. I get that, but
Yeah. Well,
it would just be curious to know how, because this is a model we all have kind of bought into and we
Yeah.
appreciate. But how's that working?
yeah, so I will be candid. My job is to be candid and to acknowledge the challenges that we face. So this is based on a project in Lebanon, New Hampshire, right across the river. 18 units, been open 8 years. We've had one eviction. I would say that is a win, right? You're taking people who are chronically homeless, who may have bounced from place to place, may have been living in a car before they live in housing. Most recently moved into housing, and we were very successful there. This has been a little bit more challenging. I will acknowledge that we had one placement early in the project, and this individual who was maybe not as far along in their recovery has been a problem. And we've been kind of working with the residents, working with the town of Hartford to address some criminal activity at the property. And that has been frustrating. It's frustrating because it is detrimental to the well-being of the residents who are there. And I will share that one of the things that I would very much like to see is, and we will be talking about when it comes to the Senate side, is landlord-tenant changes.
Have you weighed in with Mark upstairs on our bill on the landlord tenant?
We are in the process of weighing in. I have a draft letter ready to go out.
Okay,
So
it's soon because crossover is happening. I mean,
Yeah.
we're happy to address it once it gets here, but it
Yeah.
would be great to.
yeah, and again, I will share. I know our peers at CHP have been weighing in. Chris
Yeah.
Kelly, Mike Lonnie have
Chris has been
testified.
weighing in from all fall, which has
Yeah.
been terrific. which is-
And so that's something that we can get behind, in part because we understand the difference. The senator and I were talking earlier about the differences in New Hampshire and Vermont. It is much quicker and easier for a landlord to get an eviction in New Hampshire than it is in Vermont.
Yeah.
It's 1 to 2 months in New Hampshire. We can decide whether that's the right metric. It's 6 months or more. We have a household that we've been working on for 14 months
In
in
Vermont.
Vermont.
So this, just to finish on 747 Hartford, of those 18 units, only one has been a real problem. And are you in the process of evicting that person?
Unfortunately, we're in the process of evicting 6. So we've evicted 3 and we have 3 others that we're working through. Now, just because somebody files for an eviction doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be granted. Not doesn't mean that somebody's going to engage in treatment or other actions that prevent us from having to move forward with eviction. But it's an acknowledgement that this is an issue, and it's something that we're working with to make sure the legislature understands.
Randy?
Could you give us the 30-second review of the obstacles you face and why it's taking you so long based on what you see?
Too big.
Yeah. So I'll just
That's why I said the 30-second.
Yeah. I'll give a quick synopsis. With this one particular individual, as a landlord, having, absent sort of a police report or fire report that says this person is engaging in drugs, we can show activity at the site or be not. That's a little bit of the challenge.
And you're represented as,
And we're represented, maybe, folks are either represented by Vermont Legal Aid, they may have gone in pro se, whether they represent themselves, it can be a challenge getting the judge to buy in on why we're evicting this person for cause.
Yeah, and one of the things this bill does is make much clearer reasons for it,
Yes,
just cause.
and that's helpful.
and that was another question, is what you see the bill sufficient, or are there other things that you think should be done?
I think that the bill is a good first step, and there may be other things that we look at over time, but I think it's going to be a really good first step.
Yeah. Okay, well, sorry, we've delayed.
So I'm gonna point out one other thing about Riverwalk. So Riverwalk is general occupancy. In addition to doing it as a turnkey, one of the things that we benefited from is philanthropic dollars raised from major employers in the region. So Dartmouth College, Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, Dartmouth Health, and Mascoma Bank were all partners in creating an Upper Valley Housing Fund, and that is in fact
$10 million.
$10 million, and this project was a recipient of $2 million, providing first mortgage financing for helping to finance this project. So, just a great way that partner with BHCB. They're a great partner, not only providing capital dollars. Yes, thank you. Not only providing capital dollars, but obviously providing organizational capacity, capital dollars, and through foundation support, they've been helping us with resident support services, which helps keep people helping in towns. So I'm going to give a couple of examples of projects. What's Senator, did you have a question?
No,
Okay.
I'm always happy. As an example.
So here's an example. This is a project, Mellish Wood. It's a great example. It's 26 units of housing that was developed by a for-profit developer in the 1970s. He passed away a few years ago, and we purchased the property. It consisted of the historic structure that you see in the top photo, the not so historic 1970s era additional buildings in the bottom. And so with BHCB support, we are going ahead. We're going to renovate the two historic structures in the front that are really integral to the historic facade as you kind of come into the town of Woodstock. And then we're going to build this new building in the back, replacing the 1970 era structures with this new building. And we're really excited about it. One of the really critical elements here is thanks to Act 47, thanks to the efforts of the town government, we were able to increase the density by 50% in an in-town location for our seniors, walkable to services, walkable to the downtown, and that really is credit to the town, but it was also made possible by Act 47.
Right.
You're moving from the downtown towards the highway. Is it on the left side?
So this
North
is,
side?
yeah, so this is
It's right next to Shire
the
Motel,
Shire Motel and what
It's
used to
next-
be Max
next to
Market.
the Masonic Hall. It's right on Route 4. And Tribal Park is here and Melliswood's here. Our grocery
Oh,
store
right.
is kind of kitty corner from the grocery.
Yeah, so it really is a superior location.
Oh, it's
you know,
right in the center.
right in the center. of
Right next
town.
to the health center, which is even more important.
Yeah, so we have the
Because these are for
Ottauquechee,
people.
it's next to the Ottauquechee Health Center. And so BHCB put in $5.5 million. That included some one-time money that was, so a significant investment for BHCB. I want to talk about leveraging. This is one where 75% of the cost is coming from either private sources or federal sources, and private investment dollars to help make this happen. So there's a real leveraging effect here of what BHCB is putting into the project. So I need to move on to the next one. Another example in the town of Woodstock is the Vondel Reservoir. This is a project that is in process. The Vermont Land Trust is currently has an application pending before BHCB. I don't want to prejudge whether BHCB is going to say yes, but it's an example of the kind of conservation work that BHCB supports. 2023, obviously, terrible flooding across the state of Vermont. In Woodstock, it wiped out the Woodstock Aqueduct Company, which private, fourth generation, water company in downtown Woodstock, and the town was without water for 2 weeks.
Oh, it was nothing like compared to Irene. right?
It was nothing compared to Irene, but it did
Piece of cake.
it did reveal some of the deficiencies of the water system.
Actually, Irene did that.
Yeah, well,
Irene did that and we didn't make, anyway, but we're thrilled we bought it now. We're thrilled.
so I like to give Woodstock kudos because, we work across the region, New Hampshire and Vermont, trying to encourage, communities to step up when it comes to municipality, water and sewer. This is a great example of where the town acquired, the water system from the private operator. And this is kind of finishing the piece off. This is the old backup reservoir for the water system and will be conserved, 300 plus acres, wonderful walking trails up there. And mountain biking and all of that. And this is a real community asset, again, made possible thanks to the support of the agency.
And because we all care about quality of life, which brings people and residents to our state, this is a huge piece of our quality of life, an additional piece to Woodstock area.
Yes. And again, a great example, Representative Charlie Kimball was he was a key person, and I had a chance to talk with him this morning as I came in, and I was like, I'm going to mention your name.
Yeah.
He really stepped up because sometimes to municipalize something, it takes with limited resources at the municipal level. Sometimes it takes community volunteers to help things like this happen, and that's the Vermont way. And he did a great job kind of helping explain to everyone why this was important.
Well, while he was not here at the State House, he actually spent those 2 years purchasing the water company from the Billings and getting this project through. So we have big thanks to Charlie for both of those efforts.
Yeah.
So his time was well employed when he wasn't here at the State House.
So I noticed I'm coming up on my allotted time. So I thank you very much. I encourage you to endorse the governor's, approve the governor's.
Quickly, if you would weigh in on our housing bill, and I would love to have you guys review that, our page 328. We do have a piece that affects developers, which is the union, the suggestion that we use union labor for what I would hope would be multi residential unit construction. I think we're looking at prevailing wage, not just union labor, because we don't have enough union labor to do that in Vermont. How, as a developer, I mean, because you are a developer.
We are a developer.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so prevailing wage, we're already paying prevailing wage for our projects. I think one of the challenges with union labor in our region is that we're probably going to be pulling that from Massachusetts. We're probably going to be pulling that from Southern New Hampshire. It's not the homegrown businesses that construction businesses in our region.
And do you use primarily Vermont-based developers, or do you use, because you're on the river, you use
Yeah, so we because we're on the river, we'll pull from central Vermont, we'll pull from New Hampshire, so we have kind of a combination. Again, for anybody who lives along the border of state of Vermont, you may shop, you may have family, you may have an employee who lives in one state, works in the other, and that is certainly true in the Upper Valley. We have, although we're based in White River Junction, we have employees and vendors on both sides of the river.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Molly or Ben, any thoughts on that?
I would defer to my
Yeah. Okay.
partners.
Great. Any other thoughts that you would have on 328? We'd appreciate hearing in testimony or given our time frame in writing to all of us.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be.
Yeah. I mean, again, one of the other issues that in there that I know I think probably needs some thought is around restrictions on preventing prohibiting HOAs. Prohibiting rentals of units, and that's something that obviously I look at and with a little bit of concern, just making sure that that doesn't impact covenants that exist for the benefit of
So if you and Chris Donnelly, actually, Chris is working with our legislative council, Cam Wood,
Okay.
and we're working on crafting language that satisfies that because the Chittenden Housing Trust has the same issue.
They do.
So that would be great. You'll see Chris today. If you
Yes.
you kind of to weigh in with him and find out
Yeah.
where that is. I know it's being drafted, so I mean, I know they're working on it.
And
But we're gonna have language to look at next week.
okay, I will do that. Again, it's an issue that affects all the housing trusts in all parts of Vermont because often we're doing homeownership projects in smaller HOAs.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that the rules.
Right.
that-
Well, and we want to protect public dollars for
Absolutely.
somebody who really has a need and not for them to be making market rate money off of
That's right.
public jobs.
That's right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you all.
Your
Thank you
time.
so
Thank you.
much. This was great.
Yeah.
This is just terrific. And we're actually pivoting to HOAs, Andrew, because we're going to be looking at, oh no, we're doing offsite. So we're welcoming in Alex and Peter. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Are either Alex or, hi, Keisha. There's Alex, there's Peter.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, I've been here.
Hi. I love your Valentine this morning.
Oh, thank you.
It was delicious. Okay, Alex and Peter.
Just so people know, that was a picture of my 1.5-year-old. It wasn't
With a sparkle.
thing for the chair.
It was delicious. So Alex, would you like to launch? Because I think if you launch, don't worry, there's runway. Tom can do the lights up here. Alex, welcome back. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
If you would be kind enough to walk us through section 3, because we haven't really addressed it yet. Sorry, would you be kind of close the door? Thanks.
Which go?
We're on housing. And so we're at 328, our 328 draft 1.1, I think. No, draft.
No, we don't have to.
Yeah.
Just as.
Just as introduced. And Alex, I think this was, I think it's honest to say that this section of the bill was introduced before the governor's budget was clarified. And so there are some staffing implications here, which we're clear on and we'll discuss. And we know you can't weigh in on that. But if you could weigh in on this project and its importance and why you spearheaded it, or in large measure you spearheaded it, and what you, and in conjunction with the treasurer's proposal that we're going to hear about from Peter, how this might be possible. So, because last time you were here, you were a little disparaging possibly about it actually being able to move forward. That's what I thought I heard.
I'd only disparage Peter, really.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. Anyway, we are, however, now looking at it with new eyes, I think. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Maybe looking at it with new eyes. And so if you walk us through what your goals are with this project and why it's important, and then we'll turn to Peter to hear about the proposal from the treasurer's office that may make it possible.
Thank you.
And that language is being worked on by Ken as well. He has it.
All right, it's in good hands then. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Alex Farrell, Commissioner of the Department of Housing and Community Development. So I appreciate the context, Madam Chair, and maybe to paint that more fully because Senator Clarkson and I have had a more in-depth conversation with the rest of the committee. Prior to budget development, what we wanted to do was put in a placeholder that essentially listed a number of actions that could be taken to incentivize offsite constructions, modular panelized here in Vermont. And so the reason this reads as sort of a list, a menu of options, is because that there was. So flexible depending on what became available in the budget. And Senator Clarkson's point seems as though maybe there's some opportunities for proposals around LIAC. And so Peter's going to talk to you more about that. But what I'll do right now is walk you through this menu in section 3 to talk about what's already underway, what we see as a true opportunity to give offsite work facility. So the context on offsite, what we're trying to curb is the sort of boom and bust that's happened nationally, not just in Vermont, but nationally in offsite construction in Vermont. So we're trying to give a little predictability. So I'm going to walk through, I'm just going to start right at section B, where it just says, may consider the following elements. This is where the menu starts. So bulk purchasing, and in this case, it lists a single development or an aggregation. This is where potentially opening up more LIAC funds to enable either a congregation of municipalities or a developer to bulk purchase could be facilitated with a fund. So I'm going to keep moving on from that because I think Peter maybe will be better to address that. Number 2, streamlining regulatory process, pre-approved modular designs. This is one I really want to focus on today because what we can do for modular producers in Vermont and outside of Vermont who could produce units here in the state that have this predictability is give them a catalog of designs that they know can be approved anywhere in the state. We heard from Silver Maple, who I would encourage you to hear from. You've likely heard from Jason Webster already at Huntington Homes, but Silver Maple is another.
Yeah, we heard from Jason last year.
Yeah, Jason's good, but the folks at Silver Maple, they indicate that for an offsite producer, what's so hard about Vermont is you have for 200 fiefdoms where it's essentially different units. So if you're trying to produce at scale, what you need is statewide predictability. So that's going to come into play in another one of these menu items lower down here. But I just want to emphasize that our 802 Homes initiative that's already underway envisions this. What we need from the legislature, and I'm going to acknowledge that this is another committee's jurisdiction, but you're going to be in a joint hearing with that committee soon. What that needs to give offsite producers predictability is that those can be statewide, established as pre-approved statewide. Respective of whatever the
Do we have that ability to do that?
We do. We're going to be discussing it on Tuesday with the proposal that will be in front of us, which is the by right design, by right housing.
If you're interested, there's language in the administration's housing bill S-267 to achieve that. Moving through again, number 3, I'm going to pass off to Peter because an aspect of their what they're proposing could establish a loan loss reserve to enable, again, this would to be largely to support bulk purchasing.
Loan loss.
Peter's going to explain it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, there we go, Peter. So the number 4, I think, envisions essentially a particular project. Again, I don't think that's where we need to focus our energy because what we want to establish is a system so that any project could happen statewide. So number 5, again, a statewide.
So just before we leave are you wanting us to, is that a suggestion that we would be striking for?
I'd strike 4 because it's largely meaningless. Again,
Okay,
it's sort of a list of things.
Yeah, we need, time's tight, so suggestions right now about what we,
Sure.
to get rid of is good.
Okay, appreciate that. So going down to number 5, establishing a statewide procurement consortium. This again is contemplated in a bill in the House. UH 775 contemplates this. There are a couple of ways that this could be achieved. This isn't where I would prioritize, but again, the funds that could be made available through LIAC, if there is an increase to LIAC approved, a statewide consortium for procurement could be established. What I may envision, and the RDCs aren't going to be happy with me for suggesting this, but I think procurement perhaps could be managed by the RDCs, municipalities working through the RDCs in order to operate as a consortium. That's something I may suggest.
Yeah.
6, again, reminding the committee that this is just sort of a menu of items, not necessarily specific. 6, I think, aligning state and local permitting. This is a general statement that we still have a long way to go
That's an aspirational statement. Sort of like some of our other bills. They're
Yeah.
aspirational.
And if you want to achieve it in this context, what I'd say is I'd come back to my comments about number two, that 802 homes would establish that through a set of pre-approved designs.
And again, that's what we'll be looking at Tuesday.
Number 7 is establishing a statewide off-site building code. So when I talk to some of my colleagues in other states, this is something that a couple have taken a stab at. I know Colorado has, and there's a couple others that are coming to mind right now. What I would suggest that you all consider is directing us, maybe Division of Fire Safety, to establish a statewide offsite building code, which municipalities would not have the authority to alter. So this would give the offsite producers the predictability to know that, okay, if we're going to produce a home for Vermont, whether it's a producer based in Vermont or Maine or Pennsylvania, they know that they can produce 30-something units and they're not going to have to make modifications to each unit. The way the industry has gone, and Jason Webster from Huntington Homes was the first to tell you, they've gone towards individual custom homes. They can't produce it all because they don't have the predictability that a design is going to work everywhere. This would give that predictability.
I think this is great, and I sort of am sorry that we had talked about further charging the energy code work with doing this work, and that sadly didn't happen. I had long talks with Scott Campbell about that. But I also hear that the real need, if we're going to build out this bulk creation and manufacturing, which of course is a huge opportunity for Vermont too, building these units and these pieces, that really we ought to have regional building codes, because we're wanting to create these units all over New England, in New York State, so that we would want to be able to build the scale, i.e. the whole region. And to do that, then this is even more long-term, but maybe an additional necessity is regional building codes.
I think that's well said.
But we all have a housing crisis. It's not like it's just us.
That's well said. We certainly you may remember a report that PHFA and us and maybe our peers on this, and one of the ideas that was floated is sort of a standardized code. So park review and being to establish that so that there could be predictability across the states. So that's certainly something we have an interest in exploring.
So it would, the objective of this would be to develop draft building codes that we would then approve next session.
I would think so. Yes.
I can't remember. Yes, you have. So you're giving yourselves a 2-year runway on that? I hadn't appreciated that. I thought you were coming back to us sooner than that. Or is it, I'm maybe wrong,
I don't see a timeline on number 7, but I see.
In
The report
F,
at the end, yeah.
is that, how quickly do you think you might be working with fire safety and the treasurer to? Because it's slightly different from what C.
Well, the date is intended to capture sort of all of the work, and so.
Anyway, let's think about that. But if you're wanting to come back to us with draft
Sure.
building codes from statewide building codes,
How much time?
think about the date that you would want that to
Sure.
be accomplished by.
I could come.
I mean, so that it would come to the, because I think we have to still sprinkle legislative holy water on that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm trying to see if we could move that up a bit from
Yeah.
May.
I could suggest a date. And then the rest of this.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
We need them tomorrow.
Call Mike DeRocher about that.
Okay. Mike's good at that.
That's right. The rest of this, I'd say, so we're now moving out of this sort of menu of things that could be considered as part of the pilot. Now it's just moving to more general statements. And so, C at the very bottom of page 6, that's already happening. And through the course of the summer and fall, myself, Peter, members of both of our teams have been meeting with financing institutions, producers. And so this collaboration coordination is already happening, and that's what's actually producing some of the proposals you're hearing. So I'm not sure that C is necessary because that's more of a statement of something that's already happened. D, I'd say also.
I have to say, that's just such a pleasure for all of us who are doing bills to know that something's actually already been accomplished. It's drafted, then 2 months later, it's accomplished.
Because we work very well with the treasurer's office. D, I'd say is unnecessary. Because we don't need to identify a pilot project, we can enable this across the state, and as part of 802 Homes, which is already happening, we have 3 pilot communities already signed on where we could consider if we wanted to a demonstration project where we can already consider. So D is unnecessary.
Covered, yeah.
E, I'd likewise say is
Can
unnecessary.
you just remind us what the 3 towns are for the 802 homes? I know
You
said
should remember one of them. Hartford,
Hartford, that's right.
Essex Junction, and Manchester.
That's right. Thank you.
3 development ready communities.
Yeah.
And I'd say E is also unnecessary because at any point a municipality can come to us for a municipal planning grant.
Right. And then if we could just hone F, maybe
Timeline?
that would be great. Fabulous. Anything else? I mean, for us who deal with housing and economic development, this to me is also a huge economic development opportunity.
It can be.
When I think of the Fairhaven, David, the Fairhaven site, I mean, we have space in this state hungry to be filled with this kind of construction project. We have CPE kids working for the summer. We have $15 million to help have them work on a summer project. This is both an economic development opportunity and, of course, serving housing.
It is. All I'd stress is that statewide pre-approved designs and statewide building code, I think, are the 2 best ways.
Linchpins.
That's right.
They're linchpins. Okay. Given that, is it a good moment to segue to Peter?
I think it is.
Peter, why don't you come join us?
Thank you,
And then we'll Peter, this may be your first time testifying on your own in this
It
committee.
was my first time testifying in this committee, first time testifying, someone scheduled to testify. I was 17 years old, actually.
And what did you testify when you were 17?
Proposal to freeze school spending. So times have not changed. So for the record, Peter Trombley, Office of the Vermont State Treasurer. As Commissioner Farrell mentioned, we have been discussing with his team for, I think, almost a year now, ways to align the work that they're doing with offsite housing and the work that the Treasurer's Office is already doing with LIAC loans, the 10% Vermont credit facility. So I was hoping to give just a brief refresher on what those loans look like, what that credit facility is, and then talk about some of the proposed changes to that credit facility, of which there are 3. 2 of which support the offsite accelerator. I believe the committee has the language that we had sent, and Madam Chair has it, and that's my slideshow.
That's a slideshow, and I think we have your language also.
Great.
I don't have it immediately in front of me, I don't think, but maybe I do.
So just a brief refresher on what the 10%.
But we have you, which is better.
That's absolutely. A brief refresher on what the 10% Vermont program is, often referred to as LIAC. The state collects its revenues, the treasurer manages short-term cash investments before those revenues are appropriated and spent. And since 2014, I want to say that treasurer's office has had the authority to invest 10% of those cash on hand holdings in more long-term investments. And since 2023, this program has changed significantly since Treasurer Pieciak took office. The biggest change that happened is that pre-pandemic, we had typically about 250 million cash on hand on any given month. And post-pandemic, I think we peaked at about 2.5 billion and are now around 1.5 billion in cash on hand. And so 10% of that has obviously grown substantially. We've been able to make significantly more loans than Treasurer Pieciak's predecessor was able to make under this program. And when Treasurer Pieciak took office, he wanted us to prioritize housing for this credit facility. And so we've been able to invest now about $120 million in housing loans across the state, all at below market interest rates.
And what are those interests? They're right there.
They're right there. So we base our interest off the amortization period. So 0 to 5 years being 1%, and then 20 plus years going up to 0.5%. So significantly better than what a developer might be able to get at a commercial lending institute.
Who's the target?
Sorry, what's your question, Dave?
Who is the target for these loans?
We don't have any narrowing criteria, we will lend to, any housing developer, through an intermediary usually, and I can get into how that works in more detail if you'd like.
But you do lend to many of the affordable housing projects that we've already seen discussed. When we talk about, I think it was Ben who said there were 27 funding partners in one of those projects. LIAC has been an incredibly important partner on many of these projects.
Yeah.
So,
So
you
any
do affordable
housing-
and market rate investments, because you also invested in Stone Ridge, Zeeks. Is that right? Stone Ridge. Stonefront, sorry, Stone Ridge. So
Mhm.
I believe you also invested in that. So
Yes.
that is a big range.
Yes, the majority of our housing investments have had some affordable housing component, but typically not all of the project, and not all of our projects have had affordable housing. So anything from market rate developers to someone like Evernorth is receiving our capital through an intermediary. Usually, the largest intermediary being BHFA holds about 52 million, I want to say, of our 120. So the impact of our investments to date, we've been able to support over 1,700 units of housing. Some of these have already built, some of these will be coming in the future. Largely new housing, but some refurbishing of housing that was at risk of going offline. And a lot of our projects have been, or some of our projects, I should say, have been mixed housing economic development. And so our investments have also created 140 new permanent jobs across the state.
And just can you share with us how that has happened?
Yeah, so some of our investments have been, and one I'll talk about in a minute, in senior and assisted living facilities.
So
there are
those facilities, of course,
others, like the Ben High project, have been mix of housing units, but also redevelopment for commercial space. I think there's a child care center in there, if I'm recalling correctly.
Randolph, were you one of the partners in the Randolph Child Care facility?
That's my recollection, but I can double check our portfolio. Might have been my time in the treasurer's office. This is just a selection of our investments. This does not include the most recent investments that we announced just a few weeks ago, which we approved in December. So as you can see, there's a range of the award sizes and a significant range in sort of the communities we're investing in. We've invested in now, with our most recent round, 12 out of 14 counties. And are always looking for investments in Lamoille and Essex County. So if there are developers in those counties listening, please apply for LIAC funds in the future. Just two investments I wanted to briefly highlight. This is one of our senior and assisted living facilities that I mentioned before, Virgins Grand, over 65 new units of housing right in the heart of downtown Virgins and 40 new jobs established. Senior housing has been a focus of ours in trying to find opportunities because of the demographic trends in the state, but also the way building senior housing can open up units all around the area as folks move into these facilities. And another, partnership we were able to establish, which I think showcases the flexibility of these funds, is Roots Over Rutland, where we partnered with the City of Rutland and Heritage Family Credit Union to provide $8 million that they then distributed in smaller loans for smaller projects all around the community. And I believe it created north of 80 units of housing throughout the community. So 3 proposed changes to the LIAC program. One is to move the 10% in Vermont credit facility up to 12.5% of the state's cash balances. And that would create about 30 million in new lending capacity, which we could put towards new projects. The second proposal is to redirect portfolio interest, which is currently going to the general fund, into a new housing special fund. And I'll get into detail in a minute about what we would want to use that funding for. And the third is to create a 1% credit facility, which would allow us to, backstop both orders of offsite housing. So this is the piece that would really allow us to fund the pilot that Commissioner Farrell was speaking about. That 1% would be part of the total credit facility, part of the 12.5, not in addition to it. And it would be, an optional authority. So if for whatever reason, this pilot were unable to move forward, we could dedicate that funding towards our traditional housing ones that we've been doing so far. So raising the 10% capacity to 12.5, I put up this pie chart to sort of show what our state cap really looks like. We assume a cash holding of 1.2 billion for the purposes of this program. Right now, it's about 1.5. It's a little larger. We make this more conservative assumption based on really two criteria. One, where do we think cash is going to trend in the longer term? Because as you saw before, the loans we're making are 5, 10, 20-year loans, and we wanted to know where over that horizon we're going to land cash holdings. And the other is we take a look at restricted cash reserves, and then when we remove those from our cash balances, what are we left with? And both of those figures point us towards 1.2 billion as a more conservative place that we should be when we are thinking about the state's cash. So right now, a proposal of 2.5% under that assumption will be 30 million in new lending. And I just wanted to highlight, in addition to the 10% that we can put towards economic development, a few years ago, the legislature created another 2.5% credit facility, which is for climate resilience lending.
Right.
The vast majority of that portfolio is currently with the bond bank, being used to support municipalities that have been the victim of flooding in recent years to provide bridge financing as they await FEMA reimbursement. So that's been a great partnership with the bond bank. Nothing we're proposing really changes how that credit facility operates. But if you add them all up, we'd be moving from 12.5 across both credit facilities down to 15% of the state's cash.
Right, I was going to say that you're adding that on to and not making part of. Amount available. I mean, you're adding another 2.5%. Thomas.
Want to know what LIAC stands for? I don't see your slides, but the other question I have is, so you are in your modeling, you pre-pandemic 250 million cash in hand, pandemic peak 2.5 billion, now we're at 1.5 billion, now you're at 1.2 billion. What is your modeling? Are we planning to get back to that pre-pandemic 250 million over a time frame, or do you expect us to level off at 1 billion cash on hand or some other? What does your modeling look like for that?
Barring another event like a pandemic, I think we would expect a leveling around 1.2 or so.
10 years.
Yeah, we don't see us ever going back to pre-pandemic levels. I mean, just inflation alone has fundamentally changed that dynamic. But the state now holds so much more cash than it's spending on any given year. And so barring a recession or some other event, we don't take care of that. At your discretion, of course. We're spending a lot less than we hold in any given year. And so we don't anticipate going back to pre-pandemic levels.
LIAC? I don't see the acronym spelled out.
LIAC, apologies, stands for Local Investment Advisory Committee.
I had to, yeah.
So the treasurer ultimately holds discretion over this lending, but we make all of these loans in consultation with a committee that includes AVITA, VHFA, Efficiency Vermont, VSAC, and the bond bank. We work with that credit facility to draft an investment policy that our loans fit into. And so those are the sort of guidelines, parameters we use. And, when I talk about how we want to use the interest on LIAC loans, we would develop policy for that in a consultation with this committee as well. It's a great resource for us.
And I just have to remind everybody that this is an economic development fund. That's how that started it. It is how we have continued it. We have just made a priority of that economic development fund housing. So it's a lot possibly for housing, but I would remind it serves two of our purposes in this committee, which is also good. And Alex, as Lyle Jepson, I'm going to ask you to carry this message. I know you have a dually interest here, but this, as we look at access to capital, this isn't capital granting, this is loans. And the second thing is I'd remind everybody, this is not grant funding. This is loan funding. So it's great, but it has to be repaid.
Indeed. It's not free money, but it is cheap money.
It is cheap money, which is free. Thomas.
So I love housing. I definitely want to do housing, but have you also considered the scope of school construction aid? Because that's got to carry a bit lower risk too. Is that something that you'd be willing to broaden the scope on and to evaluate potential application for those types of projects?
It's something we could certainly look at. Typically, we want to loan for something that will generate returns that can be used to pay the loan, and that'd be an important consideration of risk. Another, in all these loans we make, we lend through an intermediary that guarantees us repayment. So we would want to look at how we could potentially structure that program if we were to move in that direction. And, you know, we have chosen to Treasurer Pichek has chosen to prioritize housing because we saw it as the most critical issue facing our economy. You know, if in, you know, many years, thanks to your hard work and the hard work of the folks at DHCD, we are, you know, pulling out of this housing crisis, it would be, you know, up to a future LIAC committee and treasurer to think about what are the most valuable uses of
David.
time.
So I can say as a member of the
LIAC.
LIAC, the bond bank in recent briefings is showing an interest in participating in school construction. Fund loans.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes, I see you came off mute, Keisha.
I feel like this is my opening. Unless there was like more to the presentation that you wanted to get through. And I see that.
How much more do you have?
I have a few more slides, but of course, happy to.
Keisha, if this is, you want to wait and let him finish and then, and then jump in, or you could jump in now. I mean, we've already break here. So.
Sure. So, you know, I think everyone in the room has heard me say this. And I don't see the commissioner anymore, but I texted him just because I had wanted his thoughts on. Okay, great. On an offsite accelerator.
Oh, he's right behind. You can't see him, but he's right behind Peter.
Oh, okay.
5'7", Senator.
Apologies. I did think you had left the room. So am I echoing? Is there?
No, you're fine.
Oh, okay. So everyone, I think in the room then, including the commissioner, has heard me say that we tend to set aside funds for a specific type of housing or investment only when we feel like otherwise it is getting lost and needs to be brought to the absolute top of the list. If I were to think of something that needs extra attention and support, it would probably be building housing on former school sites. If and when we move forward with education reform, that's an accelerator that's been discussed that, you know, has an appeal to communities. So I just see I don't see any compelling reason to spell out offsite construction acceleration, because it ties up funds that I think would otherwise be flexible to be used for that or other types of housing. And the commissioner's there, and he knows, you know, how strongly I feel about devastating situations where we've had to give back FEMA trailers and where offsite housing has not necessarily brought down the cost for the end consumer, if communities then reject it because they want a larger lot size for that housing. So I don't honestly know where this came from as the most strategic or compelling way to use our housing money.
So who would like to take a stab at it?
Yeah, I can start. I mean, I think, Senator, you're articulating better a point that I was trying to make, which is that I think the proposals that we're putting forward to enable offsite construction allow that to move forward, and also at the same time create a pathway for any type of construction of housing, which is why I'm really pressing on giving 802 Homes and sort of this catalog of pre-approved designs. I'm putting pressure on that to be established statewide, because those designs will be available for both traditional construction or offsite. And, you know, I'll defer to Peter. I don't know that we necessarily envision, or I don't know if the Treasurer's Office actually envisions this increase being solely dedicated to offsite, but an eligible use. I think we're seeking flexibility to for bulk purchasing to be an eligible use.
Right, and I don't think we've had a number put to the bulk purchasing yet, in terms of how much that would use of this.
Yeah.
But it does create,
do
you want to finish?
That's helpful.
Keisha,
But I did think the proposal set aside something like $6 million just for this purpose.
It did
Oh.
originally when that was, hoping that it was gonna be in the governor's budget, is that correct?
Well, yes and no. That was part of the policy bill, not so.
Yeah, it's not
But
now.
blanket reminder, when there's an administration policy bill, the appropriation section is basically meaningless. The governor's budget is what matters. So there's not actually a proposal to set aside any money for
Okay.
offsite.
I think the 6 billion is off the table at the moment, although obviously.
Okay, so it's
Offsite.
it's enabling something that otherwise wouldn't be considered housing lending. I still don't exactly see the value, but if it doesn't set aside money, I'm okay with it. I just don't see why it has to be spelled out. If it's flexible otherwise.
Okay, why don't we let Peter finish his slideshow, and maybe it will be addressed in the course of the rest of the slides.
Yeah, happy to address that question, Senator. Thank you. I'm going to skip ahead to this third change that we were proposing, which is a 1% credit facility
Right.
out of the existing, what would be 12.5, if you were to increase it for offsite construction. This would be up to $12 million.
And by credit facility, you mean a loan
A loan portfolio. Yeah.
portfolio, right?
The reason, and to your point, Senator, it would not require us to use that funding for offsite acceleration. It's part of the larger LIAC program. And if for whatever reason we did not need the full 12 million, it sounds like 6 was the figure we had originally been anticipating. Or if the accelerator, the pilot were to not be able to move forward, we could absolutely dedicate that funding towards our more traditional LIAC loans. The reason we felt that we needed some specific legislative authority here is that these loans carry more risk than our traditional loans. Typically, we have no ability to, or we're sort of curtailed by statute from making loans that we think have a substantial risk of loss. And that's the reason we loan through an intermediary that guarantees us repayment. We do think there's a slightly greater risk of loss if we were to make these revolving loans, and we have a few suggestions for how to mitigate against that. But that is why we were seeking the specific authority to create a credit facility for offsite, because we wanted civic legislative approval to take what we view as these riskier loans.
Sorry, if I'm understanding that correctly, it makes me support it even less because if we're asking for additional risk, is that the best use of the risk? Is this the top priority of where we would make riskier loans out of state funds?
So I think I would say this is, as we all talk about, this is one tool for us to be able to create cheaper houses, just like the monkey ward houses that you could buy and get. To me, this is bringing down the cost of housing. I mean, this has potential to bring down the cost of housing. And
how?
How? Because you create all these units off-site, you bring them to the site and construct them. I think that we will hear from people who can talk. I mean, we've heard already from Jason Weber about how that reduces cost. I think this is one tool for how we can begin to bend the curve on the cost of the ever-increasing cost of building housing. I mean, that's my understanding of this. Is that incorrect, Peter and Alex?
Well, sorry.
I'd offer that down the line, if true bulk purchasing were enabled, that's the potential. But I think maybe cost savings is less the benefit and more it's the rapid deployment of units that is a benefit here. Now, you could potentially attribute some savings to time save because site prep and unit development happen at the same time rather than sequentially. But, Senator, I think the point's well taken that maybe you don't see a ton of savings on a per unit basis right now. Now, if you're bulk purchasing, several municipalities could bulk purchase 50 units or 100 units for multiple developments. There'd likely be savings on those units, but I think we're several steps away from that right now.
Well, wouldn't that mean though, a savings just in the value of time?
Yes, exactly.
And that's where savings would be.
Right.
But so did I miss a slide on the demand side for this? Like how they will be deployed and what the end cost would be to the consumer?
We have yet to see that. But is that coming? So Peter, why don't you finish? And then
Yeah.
we can open this up because we have to go in 5 minutes to room 10 where we're doing our joint hearing.
Well, I'll move back very briefly. The second proposal, and this is relevant, was to sort of retain LIAC interest and be able to deploy it in an integrated fashion for our existing LIAC program. So when developers would apply for LIAC funds, in addition to our traditional loans, we'd have a few more tools we could offer them using the interest that we've retained. That could be grants, it could be buying down commercial loan rates to make them more affordable. It could be equity investments in housing projects, which is increasingly something we're hearing from developers. They are having a hard time finding the equity partners they need and they can't take on more debt. It could be very minor administrative costs to the whole portfolio that currently we just absorb into our office's budget. We're talking in the, maybe a few tens of thousands of dollars for actuarial and underwriting services, sorry. And repayment of losses to the 1% credit facility to make the state's cash balance whole if there were to turn out to be a loss. And that comes in as piecemeal. I was asked by the committee to try to visualize how this funding might support an offsite accelerator pilot. I want to caveat everything I'm about to say with these are details we would need to work out with DHCD in the implementation of the pilot. But here's two scenarios that we could envision how this money could be used. If we're placing a bulk order and a developer would like to take part in that bulk order, reserve, let's say 20 units out of the 100 we're buying, they would borrow from our 1% credit facility in order to purchase those units, sell them, cite them and sell them to the consumer, and then repay the treasurer's office back into that revolving credit facility to be used by another developer. The factory produces the housing, the developer who buys it using our money, sells it to the consumer, pays us back.
And your last, okay, and then your last slide, and then
I'll say
Tom.
final slide is a very similar model. But what we've heard from Huntington Homes is they want to be able to produce on their timeline and fit a bulk order into any production gaps in order to scale production throughout the whole year by having that guaranteed work they can always fall back on. So in that scenario, if there's a slightly longer gap between when the factory produces the home and a developer is ready to site it, we could foresee an intermediary purchasing those homes, taking title, sitting on them for a short period of time, using our money, and then finding a developer who wants them to buy them off the intermediary.
Okay, we are going to come back to this issue because we need to end, but Thomas has a question, so
I'm not against this, but I would share some of Senator Rob Hinsdale's concern that it just seems this carries with it what I would anticipate a lot more risk if we're going to own or have any type of expectation that the developer is going to be able to deploy these units in Vermont regulatory environment. I'm worried that there's going to be more defaults or carrying a higher risk that we're heavily subsidizing cash on hand. That doesn't mean I'm against this. I think we need to address that risk concern. And I do think this would be a great thing to also open up to school funding. Housing and school construction needs are very prominent in mind right now.
Appreciate that, Governor.
great. More to follow. Peter and Alex, thank you very much. This was a great rollout of it.
Thank you.
We are due in room 10, and remember, we're weighing in on opt-in, opt-out. Keisha, how do we get Keisha over to that?
Sure.
Okay, Keisha, Pierre will make sure you get zoomed in.